They can wound your body. They can laugh while you bleed. But there is one thing they can never touch: the mind that has decided to become untouchable. In the old deserts, under a sky full of merciless stars, there were men who were not raised for comfort. They were raised for war. Not only war against enemies, but war against fear, against pain, against weakness, against the voice inside that whispers, "Give up." And among them, there was a knight. Not the strongest, not the richest, not the most loved, but he became the most feared, because life discovered something terrifying about him. He could not be broken. This is not a story about motivation. This is a story about what happens when a man stops begging life to be easier and becomes someone even suffering cannot control. If you want an unbreakable mindset, then listen carefully, because the desert taught this knight a brutal truth. The weak pray for peace. The powerful become the storm. Part 1. The boy who learned pain early. There was once a young boy born near the edge of the desert, where survival was not a mindset, it was the law. He did not grow up surrounded by luxury. No silk, no softness, no easy applause. Only dust, only heat, only discipline. While other boys dreamed of comfort, he was taught something darker. He was told, if you cannot control your mind, the world will ride you like a slave. So he learned early that pain was not always the enemy. Sometimes, pain was the teacher. He learned from hunger. He learned from silence. He learned from being ignored. He learned from being underestimated. And this is where most people lose, because when life humiliates them, they become emotional. When life delays them, they become desperate. When life wounds them, they become weak. But the knight learned a different code. He learned to ask, what is this suffering trying to build inside me? That question alone separates kings from victims. Because victims ask, why me? But warriors ask, what now? And if you want an unbreakable mindset, you must stop seeing hardship as an insult and start seeing it as forging. Because steel does not become a sword in comfort, it becomes a sword in fire. Part 2. The first betrayal. One night, the boy followed a man he admired, a warrior, a protector, a man he believed was honorable. But that night, under moonlight, he saw something that changed him forever. He saw that same man trade loyalty for safety, trade courage for convenience, trade honor for survival. And in that moment, the boy learned one of the darkest lessons of power. Most people are not loyal to you. They are loyal to what you represent while it benefits them. This is where the unbreakable mindset begins. Not when life is kind, but when illusion dies. When you realize not everyone who smiles at you respects you. Not everyone who praises you values you. Not everyone who stands beside you would stand beside you when the sword comes out. That realization can make a weak person bitter, but it can make a dangerous person wise. And the knight chose wisdom. He stopped expecting loyalty from everyone. He stopped over-explaining himself. He stopped exposing his heart to untested hands. This is dark psychology most people never understand. The more available you are, the less valuable you appear. The more you reveal, the easier you are to manipulate. The more desperate you act, the less power you hold. So the night became quieter, not because he was afraid, but because he understood something powerful. Silence is armor. Part 3. The Desert of Isolation. Years passed, and the boy became a young man. Strong body, sharp eyes, disciplined habits. But life had not finished with him, because strength is easy to fake until isolation arrives. There came a season where he walked alone through the desert. No army, no brotherhood, no applause. Only him and his own mind. And that is where most men collapse. Not in battle, but in solitude. Because when there is no noise, you finally hear yourself. And what most people hear inside is ugly. Fear, insecurity, neediness, self-doubt, old wounds. That is why so many people stay distracted. Music, phones, attention, validation, drama. Because silence exposes what they are trying to escape. But the night stayed in that silence long enough to become its master. He sat with his anger. He sat with his shame. He sat with the memories that made him feel small. And instead of running, he studied them. That is power. Because if you do not confront your darkness will control your decisions from the shadows.
This is why many people sabotage themselves, why they chase toxic love, why they seek constant approval, why they fear being alone. Because they are not living from strength. They are living from unhealed emptiness. But the night turned his emptiness into discipline. He learned, if you can survive your own mind, you can survive anything. Part 4. The Secret of Emotional Control. One day, he was insulted in public. A proud man mocked him in front of others. The crowd waited. They expected rage, violence, reaction. But the knight did nothing. He just looked at the man and stayed still. That silence made the room colder than any scream ever could. Because weak men are controlled by triggers, strong men control the atmosphere. This is one of the most dangerous forms of dark psychology. The person who controls their emotions controls the battlefield. When someone can provoke you easily, they own access to your mind. When someone can make you angry on command, you are not powerful. You are programmable. And that is exactly how many people lose their lives, their money, their relationships, their dignity. Not because they were weak physically, but because they were emotionally hijacked. The knight understood this, so he trained himself never to react too quickly. He learned to pause before speaking, to breathe before deciding, to observe before attacking. That is not softness. That is strategy. A lion does not roar at every dog. If you want an unbreakable mindset, you must become harder to read, harder to shake, harder to access. Let people wonder what you're thinking. Let people underestimate your calm. Because calmness in a chaotic world is a form of dominance. Part 5. The night he was defeated. Now listen carefully, because this is where the story becomes real. The knight was not undefeated. He was not some fantasy warrior who never fell. One night, he lost. Badly. He entered a battle with confidence, maybe too much confidence. And for the first time, he was thrown to the ground, beaten, outnumbered, humiliated. His body was torn, his pride was crushed. And as he lay there in the dirt, he heard laughter. That is the moment that destroys most people. Not pain, not failure, humiliation. Because pain wounds the body, but humiliation attacks identity. It makes you question who you are. It makes you feel small. It makes you feel exposed. And many people never recover from that. They become afraid to try again, afraid to be seen, afraid to fail publicly. But the knight did something rare. He let the humiliation burn without letting it define him. He did not say, "I am nothing." He said, "Good, now I know where I am weak." That is monstrous psychological strength, to be shattered and still use the pieces as weapons. Most people take failure personally. The unbreakable take failure professionally. They study it, dissect it, use it. So if life has embarrassed you, good. If people have laughed at you, good. If you've failed publicly, good. Because now your ego has been cut open. And if you are wise, you will rebuild yourself with less illusion and more power. Part 6. Why soft people stay controlled. The knight later discovered something darker about human nature. He realized most people are not suffering because life is unfair. They are suffering because they are too easy to control. They are controlled by attention, controlled by desire, controlled by rejection, controlled by loneliness, controlled by pleasure. Offer them validation, they obey. Ignore them, they collapse. Tempt them, they fold. Pressure them, they panic. That is not freedom. That is slavery with a smile. The knight refused to live like that. He trained himself to become difficult to manipulate. How? By killing dependence. He stopped needing constant praise. He stopped needing immediate results. He stopped needing people to understand him. He stopped needing revenge to feel powerful. That is what makes a person terrifying. Not loud confidence, not fake alpha behavior, but inner independence. Because when you need nothing from people, they lose their leash on you. And that is why the most dangerous people in history were often the quietest. Because they did not beg, they did not chase, they did not explain themselves to crowds. They moved with purpose, not with emotional hunger. Remember this, the more you need, the weaker your position becomes. Need less, observe more, speak less, build more. That is the code. Part 7. The mindset of the sword. The old masters taught the knight something unforgettable. They told him, a sword is not dangerous because it is sharp. It is dangerous because it does not hesitate. Read that again with your soul. Because hesitation has destroyed more dreams than failure ever did. How many people know what they must do, but delay it? How many know they must wake up earlier, train harder, speak less, leave toxic people, build discipline, but they keep waiting for the perfect moment? The perfect moment is a lie told by fear. And fear is clever. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers, tomorrow. The knight learned to move before he felt ready. That is one of the deepest forms of self-mastery. Because action kills illusion. Action kills anxiety. Action kills self-doubt. Not thinking, not fantasizing, not watching others win. Action. An unbreakable mindset is not built by inspirational words alone. It is built when your body learns a new identity through repetition. When you train, even when you are tired. When you stay silent, even when you want to react. When you continue, even when nobody claps. That is how the sword is forged. Not once, but daily. Part 8. The dark side of respect. One of the greatest lessons the knight learned was that love is unpredictable, but respect can be built. And if you are weak-minded, people will sense it before you even speak. Your posture reveals it. Your tone reveals it. Your neediness reveals it. Your inconsistency reveals it. People test you, always. Sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. They test your boundaries. They test your standards. They test your emotional control. And if you fail those tests repeatedly, they stop respecting you. This is why the knight became strict with himself. Because self-respect comes first. And once you betray yourself enough times, the world can smell it on you. So he built rules. Dark, disciplined rules. He decided, I will not beg where I am ignored. I will not explain myself to those committed to misunderstanding me. I will not lower my standards to avoid loneliness. I will not betray my future for temporary comfort. That is power. Not cruelty, not arrogance. Power. Because boundaries are not walls against love. They are filters against disrespect. And once people realize you are not easily accessed, not easily manipulated, not easily shaken, they begin to treat you differently. Because your energy teaches people how to approach you. Part 9. The final test. Then came the final test. Not a war, not a betrayal, not humiliation. Something worse. Loss. A deep one. The kind that leaves a silence inside you. The kind that makes the world feel colder. The kind that forces you to either evolve or collapse. The knight lost someone he loved, and for the first time in years, his armor felt heavy. His discipline felt distant. His fire felt dim. And this is important, because even the strongest minds go through darkness. But here is what separates the unbreakable from the fragile. The fragile ask pain to leave quickly. The unbreakable let pain transform them slowly. He did not run from grief. He carried it, like a blade hidden beneath his robe. Not to become cruel, but to become deeper. This is something few people understand. Some pain does not disappear. It becomes part of your power. It sharpens your eyes. It matures your spirit. It kills the childish version of you.
And that is exactly what happened to him. He stopped being merely ambitious. He became inevitable. Not because he felt good every day, but because he no longer negotiated with his emotions. He moved whether he was inspired or not. He stood whether he was wounded or not. He continued whether he was understood or not. That is the final level of an unbreakable mindset, when discipline becomes stronger than emotion. Part 10. The Law of the Desert. Years later, people spoke of the knight differently. Not because he was the loudest, but because he carried something rare. A presence, a stillness, a darkness that did not beg to be seen, yet demanded respect. People thought his power came from battle, but that was only half true. His real power came from surviving himself, from surviving loneliness, surviving betrayal, surviving humiliation, surviving temptation, surviving grief, and coming out colder, sharper, cleaner, harder to break. That is the law of the desert. Anything that survives the heat becomes dangerous. So if life has been burning you lately, pay attention. Maybe you are not being punished. Maybe you are being prepared. Prepared to outgrow your old self. Prepared to stop being emotionally weak. Prepared to stop chasing what drains you. Prepared to become someone your past self would fear.
Because an unbreakable mindset is not born, it is built through silent wars nobody applauds. Ending, final cinematic closing. So when they ignore you, train. When they doubt you, build. When they betray you, observe. When they mock you, improve. When life crushes you, become heavier than the hand trying to crush you. Remember the knight, not because he was perfect, but because he made a terrifying decision. He would never allow pain to make him smaller again. And that is your decision now. You can remain soft, reactive, emotional, easy to manipulate, or you can become disciplined, silent, focused, untouchable. Let the weak seek comfort. Let the blind chase approval. Let the fragile beg for easy lives. But you were not built for that. You were built to walk through fire and come out with a colder soul, a sharper mind, and a presence that says, I have suffered and I am still standing. And once a person truly becomes that, once they master pain, master emotion, master silence, master self, then life learns a lesson too. Some people can be hurt, but never broken.